Well, it may be pretty bare now, but there's still plenty to show that this room would once have been fit for a king, and it would have been much more comfortable than the old palace in the White Tower. I mean, for a start, the windows, great big windows, so it's a nice light room. And over the fireplace, there's a big hood which would have made sure that the smoke goes up the chimney and not out into the room. And when the king received his visitors, he would sit here by the fire, nice and cosy, in a tall wooden chair, like a throne.
There's a small alcove here called an oratory. Can you guess what that was used for? Well, it was a private chapel where the king would have said his prayers. And this little chapel is thought to have been the scene of a murder. They say it was here that King Henry VI was stabbed to death. And that's commemorated by this stone plaque on the floor.
It really is a great pity that the rest of this palace has been demolished, especially the great hall where they would have held banquets and important ceremonies. But at least, looking around this room, you do get a very good idea of what a royal palace was like back in the Middle Ages.
We mustn't forget, though, that while in the Middle Ages the Tower became a grander and much more comfortable place to live, it was still, first and foremost, a castle. A place where soldiers had to be housed, together with their weapons and their horses, ready to control any rebellion. It had to be a place capable of withstanding attack. In the last part of the film, we'll be looking at some more of the things in the Tower of London and bringing its story up to date.
But before we end this part, what about those holes above the gateway at the Bywood Tower? Have you had to think about them? I'll give you a clue. They're nothing to do with the guard robes. They were called murder holes.
And they're here for two reasons. One of them is to do with stopping attackers from getting into the castle by burning the door down.
So, see if you can work it out.
Good luck. And goodbye until part 3. Hello again. Do you remember how in part 1 we told you all about how the Tower of London was built as a castle for King William the Conqueror?
And do you remember how in part 2 we told you how later kings in the Middle Ages set about making it bigger and stronger and at the same time grander and more comfortable?
Well, we thought it might be a good idea to tell you some more things about the tower before you go round yourselves. That way you'll have more clues to hunt for. As we go along, we'll give you a few things to puzzle out. And if you don't know the answers right now, don't worry. Perhaps you'll discover them as you go round.
We told you all about defence and how the walls of the tower have arrow slits through which the archers could shoot down on any enemy that might attack. But here, on a tower called Leg's Mount, there are much larger openings. So, what do you suppose were behind those? Any idea?
We told you there was once a great palace here, which has now long since been pulled down. But that palace was the home of kings and queens for hundreds of years. The last king who spent much time here was this man. Do you know his name? I'll give you a clue. He had 6 wives. And when you come to the tower, you can see his armor. This queen was his daughter. Do you know what her name was?